All right, we'll switch gears now to the nation's capital, Abuja, where we'll talk about something totally different, but has to do with an arm of government, the judiciary. Coyote.
Indeed. Lots of Nigerians were shocked to hear that a judge asked a lawyer to kneel down, and there's been lots of reactions, the NBA, lawyers. But, you know, some have said this is just a tip of the iceberg. If, you know, court proceedings were streamed live for Nigerians to see, then you would see and hear a lot of things that play out. So we want to push this conversation forward. I mean, keep it on the front burner to ensure that we have that kind of judiciary that we all will be proud of. We're joined by a legal practitioner, Mr. Chetan Wala from our Abuja studio. Mr. Wala, good morning. Welcome to the program. I know you've had your fair share of incidents in court. I know people describe you as certified courtist, not cultist this time around, courtist. So, I mean, seeing what played out in court with Mr. Shore's case, the judge asking the lawyer to kneel down because the lawyer raised his voice, we understand. And, I mean, is this a tip of the iceberg for you as well? Just how much of this have you experienced as a lawyer and, of course, someone who has approached the court for your own personal cases?
Okay, thank you, and good morning to Nigerians. Thank you for having me. You know, over the years, we've been calling for judicial review, judicial reforms. And the essence of calling for these judicial reforms is not for the fun of it. It's because it is important that we reform our judiciary holistically in all ramifications. And when you look at the court, the legal profession is built on respect. Respect for both the seniors, respect for the juniors, respect for the bar, respect for the bench. And this is what the profession was built on, or is built on. But sadly, some of the things we find these days happen within the court and within the judiciary generally. It's really sad and unfortunate. And the experiences we have continued to have has made us to continue to make this demand that there is a need to totally reform the judiciary. The incident that happened that has made news these days, I was actually in court on that said day, and when that situation actually played out, it's really an unfortunate situation. And this is not the first time or the only time we have had similar circumstances. Sure, there was even a case we had sometime in 2021 where a judge had asked a lawyer to face the wall as a punishment. These are not punishment known to law.
I'm sorry, Mr.
These are not punishment that
Pardon me, Mr. Wala, please say that again. The judge asked the lawyer to face the wall?
Yes, a judge asked the lawyer to face the wall. And when you look at these circumstances happening within our judiciary, it calls for serious concern. And that's why some of us are saying that we really need to reform the judiciary. In as much as we continue to advocate and say that lawyers must at all times respect judges. At all times, lawyers must respect judges.
Well, pardon me, did the lawyer face the wall?
Realize that this
I'm sorry, Mr. Wala. I'm still stuck there. Did the lawyer face the wall after that?
I think that exactly happened. That was what happened. And this actually made the neck of the time in one of their meetings in Bioko, the National Executive Council of the NBA, to even write a petition to the NJC over that particular circumstance, because NEC had agreed sometime on the 24th of December 2021 and said that they were going to write to the NJC over that particular circumstance. Now, these are some of the issues. And sometimes when you even hear how lawyers are being addressed in courts, you begin to wonder, why would these things happen? There is a need for synergy, like even the NBA president has said, there's a need for synergy between the bar and the bench, and to correct some of these circumstances, because we cannot continue to have these things happen. The truth of the matter is, every sector of this nation is failing or have failed. What is only left for us, or seem to be left for us, is the judiciary. And if we lose the judiciary eventually, trust me, this country will be completely lost. There are some of us who also hold the opinion that the judiciary is not even living up to expectations. And it is really a sad situation. And that is why we must, as Nigerians, put our hands together to make sure that the judiciary works. Because if the judiciary does not work, what these politicians are doing to us, they will outrun us as a nation. And we would be at their mess. Already we are even at their messes. And that's why when we see certain things happen within the judiciary, we condemn and criticize it. For example, we have always criticized and said that the FCT minister has no business building houses for judges. He has no business being have, especially a man who has series of pictorial matters within our courts. He's building houses for judges. That, we believe, will naturally compromise these judges. And these have raised up concern. But the truth of the matter is that when these concerns are raised, nobody does anything about it. And this has continued to put our judiciary in the bad light, which is really a sad situation. How can we run a judiciary that the people no longer trust? How can we continue to have a judiciary that the people no longer can rely on? We want a judiciary that can look at the faces of these people, irrespective of whose interest is involved and all that, and actually make demand and take positions on these issues. Not a judiciary that will be scared of the executive to take a position. I had criticized earlier on the timeline, even the NBA chairman actually did during the opening of the legal year last year of the Supreme Court, where he actually criticized and said that the Rivers issue, the state of emergency that was declared in Rivers State, we saw how many months it took the Supreme Court to deal on these issues. When it has to deal with issues of national importance, we see the delays and the entire thing that plays out within the sector. And we saw that took about 9 months. And it doesn't tell well of our judiciary.
Mr.
And at the end of the day, the people's hands are hoodwinked.
Mr. Wala, well, on this side of the divide, we're all still, you know, a bit shocked about that particular, you know, approach by that judge to treat a lawyer. I'm wondering, you know, did the lawyer actually face the wall?
That's exactly what happened. And that was what led to the NBA NEC to actually move, to actually write to the NJC.
Yeah, you mentioned that, and I'm wondering what the reply of the NJC is. But let's stretch the argument a bit further. What would you say to those who would argue that the bar itself is not removed from some of the excesses and concerns raised about that particular institution, with, you know, lawyers accused of deploying tactics that drag very critical cases of corruption, you know, with cases that have to do with elections, you know, issues around forum shopping, and by extension, perhaps members of the bar themselves hand over, you know, wholesale the dignity of their own side of the practice on a platter to judges.
Well, to be frank and to be honest to everyone, the truth of the matter is you cannot completely exonerate lawyers from some of the things we find today in the judiciary. Lawyers are part and parcel of it. And let me say this. Last year during the Speedell conference, I had an opportunity to give an intervention, and I told them during that Speedell conference of lawyers, and I said, see, the truth of the matter is that when you continuously have, you continue to have lawyers who become attorney generals of states, now turn themselves into demigods, or attorney generals of the federation, turn themselves into demigods, that we start seeing some of these things. When you also have lawyers who are senior lawyers and feel that they have contact across the country and that they can compromise the judiciary, these are part of these issues. Now, the truth of the matter is that the politicians who seek to compromise our judiciary do not do these things directly themselves. They have lawyers they use to get these things done. And this is clear-cut knowledge around our system. We know it. But, you know, the truth of the matter is, as Nigerians, we pretend over most of these issues. We pretend like they don't happen. But these things happen. You could even recall that in one circumstance, there was even a conference the NBA president had attended, and in that meeting, the NBA conference stated clearly that the judiciary is corrupt and that some judges they collect bribes. We heard him say these things, and this is our reality. We must deal with this issue by carrying out critical judicial reforms, and not just for the mere word of saying that we are reforming the judiciary. The act of reforming the judiciary must be seen. People should be disciplined, and that discipline should be restored back to the profession. You know what is further sad about everything happening in our country is that those who have benefited from the profession, those who have made a lot of money, trained their children, and even done so well for themselves through the legal profession, are the people today destroying the profession with these corrupt practices you find left, right, and center. And it's a sad situation. I keep saying it. You know, they don't like me saying all these things, but that is the truth. We will not stop saying it. Because we must reform our judiciary. And that is why we are insisting on it, that there must be a reform, judicial reform in our system. Because a lot has gone wrong, and the average Nigerian on the street do not trust our courts these days because of how the court has carried itself. The court must learn to carry itself with pride, like a bride.
Mr. Chetam.
But when we see all these infractions, it becomes a challenge for us.
Mr. Chetam, I can understand your frustration and everybody's frustration, and I know that within the judiciary we have some exceptional judges, some exceptional lawyers. We just have some of these elements that are disgracing the profession, which is why we are mainstreaming this conversation. I want to ask you 3 questions in one, just bullet points. So what you're dealing with is the difference between administration of justice and judicial administration. So we're talking about judicial administration. So I want to go to solutions now. What should be done to a judge who acts the way some of these judges did? Or what is the provision under the NJC law? To a judge asking somebody to kneel down or face the wall is just absurd. It's just, what kind of reprimand is required to be able to say, you can't do that here. This is not secondary school. I don't even understand that. Second part is that, what should be done to stop what is perceived as an executive arm of government interfering in the, or influencing the judicial arm of government? So, for instance, Nyesom Wike, the FCT minister, is perhaps arguably one of the most prolific political litigants in Nigeria. In fact, the PDP at some point had written to say they should not be taking their cases to Justice Peter Lifu, Justice James Omotosho, Justice Abdulmalik Joyce, because they feel that those judges, pander towards him, as alleged. So what should be done in terms of improving the welfare of judges that Nyesom Wike and people who build houses for judges will use as a premise to say we need to take care of our own? And then the last question will be, when it comes to a verdict, how I know who won a case, especially political cases? I used to know who, if you walk into a court, the party that is in court is likely the party that won. The loser never comes to court. So I was surprised the last one that happened, the appeal, consolidated appeal, I saw both the Abdulmalik group and the Turaki group. I said, okay, maybe nobody knows the outcome. But most of the time, we seem to know what the outcome is, depending on who shows up in court. Is it that they know already who has won the case? So I've asked you 3 questions in one. If you forget, I'll remind you.
Okay, let me state clearly. Let me start from the last one. The truth of the matter is that the law allows every litigant to come to court and to actually collect judgments on the set day of judgment. So it does not change anything whether the person who won or loses is actually in court. So it is just what the law allows for. Because after doing your matter, definitely you would actually come on the day of judgment to know what the judgment of the court is. And on most of the occasion, you would also look at the arguments you actually placed. Sometimes even before the verdict is actually given, you already know that you have actually lost the matter or you've actually won. So sometimes these are some of the factors that actually play out eventually. And some senior lawyers usually would not want to come to court on the day of judgment. They majorly send their juniors to come and all that. So it's quite understandable on that particular limb. Then for the issue of executive rascality we have seen and their influence on judiciary, how we can solve this problem is simple. See, the judiciary has the bulk of work to do, because they must carry themselves with respect, they must carry themselves with honor as against what the pressures from these politicians. Let me say this. The politicians would always look for ways to compromise the judiciary. But what makes the difference is the character and integrity of the judge. That the judge stands firm. There were times we had people like the Justice Oputas of our world and the rest of them. We knew about their integrity and their personality and how firm they stood on critical issues that affects this nation and that affects major politicians. But these days, we seem to be a little bit weak in this particular regard. And I have always said that judges have to be the ones to correct this whole thing, because these politicians will stop at nothing. They will stop at nothing to try to influence judgments of courts. So the judges themselves have a duty, not just to themselves, but to Nigerians, to make sure that they are always firm on issues, even when this enticement comes. Then the National Judicial Council, as well as the Judicial Service Commission, must look for ways to as well protect judges from the actions of these politicians. If Nyesom Wike builds houses and says he's presenting it to the judiciary has a right to reject those houses. They have a right to reject those houses. It must not be, there's nothing on earth that says that they have to accept those houses. Those are not just mere houses built for judges. Those are mansions. This was the same thing he did in River State, where he built houses for judges, and we raised up this concern that the judges that they didn't give houses, they gave them 150 million. What does that simply mean? That you're giving a judge 150 million in lieu of a house? And you tell me that it is not corruption, there is no corrupt practices in it, or there are no intentions? And this is the same person who still runs back to this court. This raises serious concern. And that's why we are saying that judicial officers would have to reject those houses and let the judiciary look for ways, cater for the welfare of judges. We cannot continue to allow these politicians to... One of the reasons why you see that judges are quite reserved and kept protected from the general public is because of the importance of their role in our society, how important they are. And that is why even those of us who are lawyers also have a duty to protect judges from these abuses. But you see, today, it is lawyers who are even facilitating some of these things for these politicians. And it's a sad situation for us as a nation. So, importantly, if we want to deal with this and nip this whole thing on the board, the judges, first of all, must carry themselves in that light and in that, and to avoid this circumstance. We have very exceptional judges on our bench. Very exceptional judges. I can tell you Nigeria is one nation which even other West African nations like the Gambia and all that come to shop for judges. An event because of how good most of our judges are. But of course, amongst the entire flocks, there are those you would also find compromising.
Mr. Wala, so should we, because something concrete is what I want to hear, because what you're saying is discretional. I have covered former Governor Nyesom Wike's government, and I've been to those quarters. I think Aguma quarter, I've forgotten the name now, somewhere around GRA. It's fantastic. And if you know Nyesom Wike, when it comes to infrastructure, it goes all out. So I think it's a 20 different apartments, just different duplexes. You're literally just walking with your clothes because everything has been provided. There is a swimming pool, I can remember, there's a swimming pool, there's a play field, there's a hall. It's literally a very beautiful place for anybody who is a judge to live in. So it's very difficult to resist that kind of offer. But do you think a legislation would help in this sense? Because if you leave it to discretion, as you said, the politicians, they don't back down on how they carry out their, whatever it is they carry out.
I would have naturally agreed completely with you that the legislation would help in resolving this issue. But you know, the challenge about the legislation is, if you look at the National Assembly of today, they are basically puppets of the president. The National Assembly we have today are not the National Assembly that could actually take a position that would affect the interests of the president. And we know as of today that the president will do everything possible to compromise any system just to have his 2027 ambition on ground. So even if it takes him compromising the judiciary, this president will do it. And we know that for a fact. Now, you have a Senate, you have a House of Representatives, a National Assembly that sings on your mandate at every beck and call of the president, that feels that, or that approves everything, whether it is for or against the interest of Nigerians. For the president, they don't care about what the yearnings of Nigerians are. So when you have that level of National Assembly suggesting to them to put up a legislation that will be able to protect the judges further, I tell you for free, these people will not do it because their interest is to compromise the judiciary. So if they have seen leeways to compromise the judiciary, they will continue to do it. And that's kind of National Assembly we have today. And it's really a shame. And it's an unfortunate situation for us as a people, that we have a National Assembly that is more of a paper tiger that cannot even bite. They only bite on issues that affect their own personal interest. Look at the electoral reform issues we talked about and the demands of Nigerians. The bulk of Nigerians needed electronic transmission. But what did we have eventually? We had a National Assembly that was interested in what the president wanted. And that is all. So for them, it is not about representation of Nigerians. As of today, the National Assembly is not representing Nigerians. They are representing themselves and the president. So when we look at it from that standpoint, trust me, even going down to them to push some of these things, it will die a natural death. Or they would even make laws that would even water down the essence of the said bill. Which is an unfortunate thing for us as a people. We are at the darkest times of our nation. We are at the very darkest times, and it's really an unfortunate thing for us. But Nigerians, I must say this, that if these things continue, a day shall come, Nigerians would also rise up and take back their country from these politicians. And 2027 election is by the corner, and I believe that Nigerians will use their vote to chase out these rascals we have in government.
Well, Mr. Chetam Wala, we have to thank you for your time. This conversation is not just about the judiciary, it's about governance, right? The political space as well. And I think Nigerians will have a chance to make their decision come next year. Legal practitioner Chetam Wala, thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.